Great marriage until my wife dies, realized infidelity after she died, swept it under the rug for the kids' sake, now it's back to haunt me. My SO, an extrovert, and I, an introvert, started dating in our mid-20s. We both had our fill of one-night stands and cheating partners. 3 years later we were married. We were best friends that had a lot of fun and couldn't keep our hands off each other. DNA left in 4 countries and half the states. On my SO's 34th birthday I gave her a ring box with a note asking if she would quit her birth control so we could have a baby together. She jumped into my arms and kissed me until I lost my balance and fell to the floor. The happiest I'd ever seen her. She took me into the bedroom, past the bed, into the bathroom where we flushed her remaining pills. Over the next 5 years, we lost 3 pregnancies. This hurt us both deeply. We talked and decided to adopt. The process is long, but in our early 40s we watched our daughter, be born. The sparkle was back in her eye. The next 8 years were wonderful. My SO was the kindest, most empathetic mother I'd ever seen. All of our friends told me how lucky I was. At 50 my SO asked me to get a vasectomy to lessen the chance of another unwanted pregnancy. I had a bad case of the flu the week of my snip and I had to cancel. My SO got the same flu from me the next week. She wouldn't let me take her to the hospital, but I finally took her to the emergency room where she had a stroke that lapsed into a coma. 6 horrible days later she passed away. Both and myself were devastated. It took almost a year before she would sleep in her own bed. She said she was afraid I'd leave too. Soon I received 2 credit card statements in her name. We always had common finances. The balance for both cards was just shy of $14,000, mostly in cash advances I sent for all of the back statements. This got me thinking about the last year. Time life went from normal, down to once every week or 2, to me giving and not getting head but no penetration. She also had a few new foreplay tricks she'd never used before. We also went from talking over everything at dinner to barely talking by the end of the year. Then to the point she would avoid talking to me at all. All we had was a landline with 2 phones. She would get mysterious late calls and the caller ID register was always cleared, completely not normal. She went from a girls' night every week or 2, to girls' night twice a week by the end of the year. Her dress for girls' night also went from jeans and a sweater to being dolled up by the end of the year. She would even get her hair done sometimes. Then I got total confirmation of her affair in the mail again. I was blissfully ignorant and enjoyed the one-on-one time with playtime, bath time, chasing her until she would go to bed, then story time and kiss her on the forehead goodnight. After a couple years of grieving and obsessing, my company offered me a job far away and I jumped at it. I pretty much just swept everything under the rug and we left. Fast forward 10 years and I start having these very vivid dreams that I remembered for days. My SO would be dressed beautifully, dancing and kissing her AP, they would go to their room, strip in front of me and throw their clothes on me like I was a cuck, then screw in front of me and laugh at my misery. I finally went to an IC who told me that I never got closure on my SO's affair. I, 64, just retired and 22, wants to move back to our hometown. I am hesitant because I still don't know who the AP is and I don't want to be nice to the SOB that screwed my wife. I would be surprised if AP was outside our circle of friends. I also don't want looking up to someone who screwed her mother. Should I ask SO's best friend who AP is? She would know. Should I dig all this back up? I'm obsessing again. I thought all of this was behind me. Please let me know. Comment 1. Maybe I missed something. Not unusual for me to get behind the power curve, and certainly not wanting to be cruel, but is it possible that may not be your daughter? I doubt that. If so, it wouldn't change your love for her, but it may also be that you see her in a different light. I still think about my ex of 12 years who just walked out of my life in what I thought was a great love and partnership. I haven't seen her to this day, 30 years this year 2021, but also never found out why. I think that would have helped me a lot to come to terms with my feelings, but in some way might have poisoned me for the rest of my relationships with my train of wives. Even though I didn't cheat, I was and have not really emotionally committed. One of my exes killed herself and I never even went to the funeral. I'm not part of the don't ask don't tell crowd, but inside, I know I really don't give a shit. Comment 2. I can't kill my feelings for her because she and I have a daughter that loves us both. Do I just quit telling of the wonderful life we had and stories about her mom? Life doesn't revolve around me, I have other considerations. She did harm me, but I have forgiven this. I have to for M's sake. You seem to want me to forget 41% of my life for what happened in 0.75% of it. I am trying to forget that small part, or at least come to terms with it. Please don't comment any further, you are not helping. Actually, you are making me regret posting on Reddit at all. Comment 3. This is an awful situation. Rare in depth of how heartbreaking it is. You seem to have been doing nothing but the right things in response, which makes it even more tragic being that you seem like an outwardly good person. I deal with pains like this by headbutting them. The repetition of embracing the idea eventually gets more awful than act itself. The issue with you is, you don't seem to have the spite and hate in your heart that I have. Just by your words you seem more rounded than I am, so this may be cheap parts for an expensive machine. But I also don't believe burying it will help. I would recommend almost anything but that. It will never go away. Nobody has ever truly rid themselves of something they buried. Forgiveness is paramount. For yourself, especially. I don't know you, her, or the guy who she was involved with obviously, but I can bet that she wasn't as dreadful as your dreams portray, simply because someone as sensible as you seem would have sniffed that out long ago. Know that she clearly had a void within herself, which is sad. She handled it poorly. It likely ate at her heart daily. Her talks with you shortened because her guilt manifested, and if she hated you she would have left. She didn't, so she stayed. And that resulted in her having a harder time looking at the man she wronged. She lost a piece of her soul in the process, and it wasn't as joyous as the mind will make it. That's the negative emotions talking, which is absolutely understandable. Comment 4. In our first 10 years, I was much different. Anybody approached her in a bar and we either fought or he backed down and left. She told me several times that she could handle herself. One night we were out with friends playing pool, her and another wife were at the bar talking. I watched this good-looking young hot dog get up, go over to her, put his arm around her and get his face right next to her ear. The first thing she did was point a finger at me just like how we taught our dogs to stay, so I stayed. She got up smiling, pushed the bar stool back making the guy move back a step or two. She was still smiling at him when she turned towards him so he decided to move on in. That's when she drew back and kicked him square in the nuts. He went down, the bar erupted with laughter. I picked him and asked him to leave and he did. It's not that I didn't trust her before, I just thought it was my job to protect her. After that, I always kept an eye on her, but I never got in a fight again. I also trusted her completely. Thank you for your comment. Comment 5. This story is so bittersweet. My suggestion, focus on all the sweetness that you remember, keep that as the memory, it's a treasure most people never get to experience. Your mind is dredging up more and more instances from a past that can never wholly be understood. Even if you get confirmation, it will never be enough. Even if you got details, it still won't be enough. It will only end when you make the decision to end it. Your mind is changing the narrative of your life. I only say this because you talk very sweetly about your wife and it sounds like you got an opportunity to experience something special. No, I'm sure not perfect, but who is? Acknowledge to yourself that life or anyone isn't perfect, not even you. Then make a choice to accept the past. Acceptance is the battle you're fighting. Then decide if you want to continue talking sweetly about your wife or start referring to her as a cheating whore. Your decision will manifest your future. Good luck, brother. Comment 6. If you ask the best friend and she claims ignorance or refuses to answer, you're going to be left in the same place you are now, with added frustration. If you get a name, what will you do with the information? Obsess over them and give them free rent in your head? Confront the person and leave yourself open to all sorts of repercussions? No good can come from picking at this scab. Nothing can change the past, nothing you learn from these investigations will make you feel better. It's time to see a therapist to help you grieve the loss of the marriage you thought you had. It's like you lost your wife twice, and that is what you need to confront. Good luck, sugar. Comment 7. Personally, if it was me I wouldn't have a choice, I would have to know. Especially if what you think is correct and it was one of your friends. It would be eating at me and I would be analyzing any and all subsequent meetings with my friends. Not healthy, but if I did get an answer, I sure as hell would be causing a lot of pain and discomfort in said person's life, that is for sure. Do not want to hear any replies from any bleeding hearts. The problem that you have created is the fact you have done nothing for 10 years. I am sure if the dirty snake is one of your so-called male friends, then by now he may have confided in one or two other friends. My question is, why did you not ask her best friend or friends when you first found out, instead of rug sweeping and not confronting the problem 10 years ago? Comment 8. I found out that my husband had an affair 3 days after he passed away. He died last August and I am 3 weeks away from leaving the home we purchased to renovate. He did a wonderful job with the renovation and I helped him where I could. I sold his motorcycle a few months ago and his car about 6 weeks ago. Every item I find breaks my heart. As I look around the house now with various items dismantled and a lot of stuff gone, I remember some very good times, and I really need to remember these times. The affair and what I found about it did a lot of damage to my memories. While I am in therapy, I don't know where I'll end up mentally when this is years behind me. I am hugging you virtually, and I hope you can find a place you can settle emotionally that will allow you to live a life and enjoy. Comment 9. As a cuckold husband who could out several of my wife's lovers, knowing is a turn on. However, when I was engaged the first time and found out, it drove me nuts, cause now I had a face and body to imagine on top of her and between her legs. It was a horrible couple years. My next GF cheated with 2 guys during out 8 months together. Told me as she broke up with me. Never knew who one was, other was her ex. It didn't matter knowing. It just hurt. I don't think it's going to help, and more likely will hurt. But this is what your counselor is for. Mine had. Write a letter, never mailed, to her and just let it all out. You need to finish the grief process. Maybe find another counselor. Comment 10. Relatives are close, camaraderie, exchanging personal relationship info. Not so much siblings but in-laws, cousins, uncles, steps, etc. The point is, it is almost always someone close. Rarely a stranger. Thanks you for watching. Everyday new movies. See you soon.